everyone. We're continuing melachim Beis. We're up to Perek Chaf Aleph. Chizkiyahu, the great tzaddik, died, and he was succeeded by his son Menashe. Remember that Chizkiyahu didn't even want to have children because he saw B'ruach HaKodesh that his son would be a Rasha. V'kach have. Ben Shteim Esrei Shana Menashe b'Molchei. Menashe became king at the age of 12. V'chamishim b'chamei shana malach b'Yerushalayim. And because he was so young, he had the longest reign of any of the kings, 55 years in Yerushalayim. So that means he still died relatively young. He died at 67. V'shem imai, Chizkiyahu's wife, his mother's name was Cheptzi Ba. Vayas hara b'yeinei Hashem. And he did evil in the eyes of God. All of the abominations of the nations that God had kicked out of Eretz Yisrael. The Shiva Amim. Vayosha vayiven es habamais. Asher ibeit Chizkiyahu aviv. He rebuilt all of the bamais. This is not the bamais for Hashem. The bamais of Avodah Zarah that Chizkiyahu, his father, had destroyed. Vayakam mizbachais leBaal. He built altars for the Canaanite god Baal. Vayas Asherah. And he made Asherahs, trees for Avodah Zarah. Kasher asa Achav melech Yisrael. Achav was the worst of the melachim Yisrael, and Menashe is emulating Achav. Vayishtachu l'chol tzva shamayim v'yavodeisam. And he bowed down to all the host of the heaven, the sun and the moon and the stars. Ubana mizbachais b'beis Hashem, and he even built altars to Avodah Zarah in the Beis Hamikdash. Asher Amar Hashem b'Yerushalayim asem eshmi, that Hashem said, my name, my Shekhinah, is resting in Yerushalayim, that very holy place, holiest of all places. Menashe desecrated. Vayiven mizbachais l'chol tzva shamayim b'shtei chatzros Beis Hashem. In both courtyards, right? There's an outer courtyard, which is called the Ezras Nashim, and then there's an inner courtyard, which is called the Azara, Ezras Yisrael. He built mizbachais to the stars and the planets in both courtyards. V'hever espenai ba'esh, and he would pass his children through fire, which was the Avodah of Melech. Va'onein v'nichesh v'yasayai v'yedainim. Right? These are various types of sorcery and magic. Ma'onein, menachesh, ov, yidoni. He did all of these things. Hirbe lasei sarah b'yeinei Hashem lahachis. He did evil in the eyes of God, lahachis, meaning he didn't get any pleasure from it. He wanted to do it. In other words, there was no benefit to him. He did it lahachis, to rebel against Hashem. Vayosem es pesel ho'ashera sherasa. He made an idol to the tree. So this is not the tree. He made an idol of the Asherah. Babayis asher amar Hashem el David vel Shlomo beno. Babayis hazeh u'b'Yerushalayim asher bacharti mikol shiftei Yisrael asem eshmi liolam. In the very house that God had promised to David and Shlomo, that in this bias and in this city I have chosen from all of Am Yisrael to put my name, to be Mashra, my Shekhinah there. And then it says, V'layosef lahanid regel Yisrael minu adam asher nasati li'avaisam, that if the Jewish people are faithful to me, I will not remove them from the land, but rak im yishmeru lasas kechol asher tzivisem on the condition they keep the Torah. V'lo shomeyu, but they didn't keep the Torah. Vayitzem Menashe lasais esara min hagoyim asher hishmid Hashem b'pnei b'nei Yisrael. So this is a critical pasuk. Until now, we've been describing Menashe in terms of his own sins, but now it gets even worse. Menashe was mashrish Avodah Zarah in Klal Yisrael. Menashe led them astray to do more evil than the original goyim that Hashem had thrown out of Eretz Canaan. Vayidaber Hashem biyad avadav hanaviyim leimar. and Hashem decreed through his Nevi'im. So it's Lav Dafka Yeshayahu here. Interestingly enough, Yeshayahu is not the Navi who gives this Teichacha. Rashi says it was Nachum and Chabakuk. And what is the message? Now it doesn't say clear that it's given to him, but this was the message they got. Yan asher asa Menashe melech Yehuda tayev esayla ra Mikael asher asu ha'mayri asher lefanav. Because Menashe melech Yehuda has done these evil abominations more than even the Amori that once lived in this land. And not only did he do it, but vayachatei games Yehuda begilulav, he caused all of Yehuda, all of Malchus Yehuda, that's Yehuda and Binyamin, to sin with all of these idols. Lochein kai amar Hashem Elokei Yisrael, so decrees Hashem, hineni mevi ra'ah al Yerushalayim, I'm going to bring evil on Yerushalayim and Malchus Yehuda, asher shaima titzalna shtei aznav. It's going to be so shocking, so devastating, that when you hear the news, your ears are going to shudder. Again, obviously it's a metaphoric expression, but the concept is, it's going to be so frightening that the ears are going to be shaking. V'natisi al Yerushalayim, eis kav shomron, v'yes mishkailas, beis achav. I will place upon Yerushalayim. So kav and mishkailas are architectural words. A kav is like a plumb line, and a mishkailas is the weight at the end of the line. That if you want to even a wall, you're not sure if the wall is straight or sagging or moving out. So you have a plumb line in which you take a wire and you attach a weight like a stone, and you see if it goes down straight, the wall is straight. So this is a reference to Hashem bringing. I will bring to Yerushalayim the plumb line and the weight that I brought to Shomron and Beis Achav, who were destroyed. Umachisi es Yerushalayim, I will wipe Yerushalayim clean. Kasher yimchas et salachas macha, like one who wipes a plate of food clean. Right? You eat a plate of food, it's totally eaten up. And then kasher yimchas et salachas, like you eradicate the contents of a plate. And then you turn it over, so nothing else can be on that plate. V'natashti eis sheiris nachalasi, I will abandon, at least temporarily, the remnant of my inheritance, the remnant that's left over after the 10 tribes. Unesatim biyad oyeveim, and I will deliver them in the hands of their enemies. V'hayu levaz, they will be for shame, v'limis shisa, and plunder, l'chol oyeveim, for all their enemies. Yan asher asu es harabi enai, because they, the whole Jewish people under Menashe's leadership, has done evil in my eyes. V'yiyu machisim osi, and they make me angry. Min hayayim asher yatsu avaysem mitzrayim adiyom hazeh. And it's not just now. They've been doing Averis over and over again from the day of Yetzias Mitzrayim. And now they've reached their limit. So it's important to note that the Gezerah of the Chorban Beis HaMikdash and the Golus from Eretz Yisrael, the Golus of Yerushalayim, was made during the reign of Menashe, although we will see it was not carried out in the reign of Menashe. There's still going to be a few kings after him. So Hashem is still giving us a chance to rip the Gezerah. Tshuva could even be Kareya Gezerah, but it's much harder to do. It's much easier to get a Gezerah, to prevent a Gezerah Ra, than it is to be Kareya a Gezerah Ra. The Gezerah Ra was made in the days of Menashe. So the first chait that we've been describing is the chait of Avodah Zorah. But now it mentions V'gam dam noki shafach Menashe harbe miyot. Right? Chazal say that the first Beis HaMikdash was destroyed because of Avodah Zarah, Gili Arayas, Shvichus Damim. Now, Lamaisa, in the case of Menashe, we don't really have direct references to Gili Arayas, but it does mention Avodah Zarah, and now it mentions Shvichus Damim. Menashe murdered many people, we're not told why. Ada Shermileas Yerushalayim Peh Lepeh. He filled Yerushalayim from one end to the other with dead bodies. And all of that is Levad Mechataso. This is besides his Aveira, Asher Hechti Yeshuda, that he caused other people to sin. Lasa Sarabi Einei Hashem. The Yesher Divrei Menashe L'Sherasa, the rest of Menashe's life, Chatasa Asher Chata, and all of his sins. Haloem Kesuvim. They are recorded in the Sefer Divrei Hayomim, L'Malcha Yehuda. Vayishkaiv Menashe im Aveisav. Menashe died. Now, interestingly enough, he is not buried in Ir David, perhaps because he's a Rasha. Vayikaver Began Beisai. He was buried in the garden of his own house, Began Uzzah. Okay, this may have been a gan that originally belonged to Uzzah. We don't really know. Maybe it's similar, I'm just saying, maybe it's similar to Achav, who killed Navais and took his Keren. Perhaps, I don't have a raya for this, the Remez here, Menashe did a similar thing to Uzzah and took his Keren, or gan. Vayimlaich Amain B'nai Tachtav. And Menashe was succeeded by his son Amain. Now, I just want to make one little ha'ara. From the story of Menashe, he seems to be a Rasha Mitzchila V'Yatzaif. He lived as a Rasha, he died as a Rasha. And yet, in Divrei Hayomim, it actually tells us that Menashe did Shuva, B'chol Levavai V'chol Nafshay, and Menashe died as a Baal Shuva. So it's one of the great stiras between melachim and Divrei Hayomim. But some Meforshim want to say that Menashe as a person did Shuva. But the reason why melachim treats him as a Rasha is that even if he got forgiveness for the sins he committed, he was not able to undo the damage of being Machdiyas Harabim. So Kalape, the Chilul Hashem and the Machdiyas Harabim, he died a Rasha. He was not in a matzav where he could be forgiven. Legabe his own Averas, there was a forgiveness. That's why there's a machlekes. Does he have a chelik in Olam Haba or not? Some say he does have a chelik in Olam Haba because he did do tshuva. Others say because he was Machdiyas Harabim, not. The Gemara also tells us that when the Chachamim brought up the Shita, that Menashe does not have a share in Olam Haba, he appeared to them in a dream, and he was able to answer every single kasha they had on the Torah. He was a Gavaldige Talmid Chacham. And then they asked him, a man of your great learning, your great knowledge, how could you be nichshol in Avodah Zarah? He told them, you have no idea what the Yetzer Hara of Avodah Zarah was, that if you would have been alive during that time, you would have run, and you would have cut your knees, cut your legs, and ripped your garments, getting to the nearest idol. You don't know what the Yitzra de Avodah Zarah was. Okay. Back to the pasuk. So now Menashe died, either as a Rasha or as a Tzaddik. That depends on Divrei Hayomim or Malachim. Ben Esrim Shtayim Shana Amain b'Malchai. Amain was a king he was 22 years when he became king. Ushtayim Shana Malchus. He was only king for 2 years. Shem Imai, Menashe's wife, was Mishulamet Bat Charutz from the town of Yotva. And tragically, same like father, like son, Vayas Hara B'Einei Hashem, Kasher Asa Menashe Aviv. He did evil like his father Menashe. Vayelech b'chol haderech asher halach Aviv, v'yaved es hagilul asher aved Aviv. He bowed down to the Avodah Zarah, yishtachvu lahem, v'yazev es Hashem Elokei Avaisav, and he forsook Hashem, v'loy halach b'derech Hashem. Vayikshu avdei Aman Olav, the servants of Aman rebelled against him. Yamisu es hamelech b'beisai. They killed him. However, so apparently this was supposed to be a coup, but interestingly enough, Aman had loyalists. V'yach ha'ma'aretz es kol ha'kaishrim ala melech Amain, that the people were able to overpower the revolution. V'yamlichu am ha'aretz es Yoshio b'nai tachtav, and they were able to make Yoshio, the son of Amain, Chizkiyahu's grandson, to become king. V'yeser divrei Aman asher asa, the rest of Amain's life for the 2 years, Elohim Kesuvim, al Sefer Divrei Yom Malchi Yehuda, Vayikbar Isai Bikfurasai, he was buried next to his father Menashe in Gan Uza, Vayimloich Yeshiyahu B'nai Tachtav. Yeshiyahu now became king. Yeshiyahu, the son of Amain, the grandson of Chizkiyahu. And here we're going to see that Yeshiyahu was a tzaddik, and this was the one great last chance to be Kaireya, the Gezar Din of the Churban Beis HaMikdash.